Are you wondering what it is that I'm speaking about with spilling the LT? If you've checked out a couple of the videos, you've seen me on YouTube, Facebook, and even some snippets on Instagram and TikTok. And I've been talking about spilling the LT. So let me break that down for you so that it makes complete sense and why I am speaking out in this way. First of all, we heard the term all the time about how people spill the tea about things that they've learned or they know. It could be rumors, it could be something that's just so juicy, you got to talk about it and you have to share it with someone else. Of course, it's not good unless you're sharing it right. But unfortunately, the things that happen to us that are not so good in our lives probably need to be spilled too. If you don't spill it out of you, where does it go? It goes down deep into your soul and your bones, and it just festers. It harbors hatred. It becomes boils that were within your system that, for whatever reason, just sit there and atrophy. It doesn't flush from your system, your mind, your thoughts, and you start to ruminate in it. And anyone who has ruminated on anything negative before knows that those type of things lead to depression. And that's not the zone that I ever wanted to be in. Well, let me take you back just a little bit so that it makes a little bit of sense. 26 years of dedicated service to a law enforcement agency, mine, the Los Angeles County Sheriff's Department. And quite frankly, my husband ran for sheriff. And from that point forward, with it being leaked out, even at a time that he didn't plan to announce it, life changed for me. You see, what people don't really understand is that anytime uh, the opposite of how Eve shared that apple with Adam, anytime they first start out with the man and then go to the woman, and then it becomes a blend or a mix only when it suits a situation, it's a problem. You see, Eve made that decision to eat the apple. Adam had already been given his direction from God, but he listened to his woman. Doesn't mean that was a bad thing, but his mission and his walk was designed in a certain manner, in a certain way. I say that because Eric's walk in his campaign was for him. It was his walk. I had no intentions of, wow, this is going to actually benefit me in some way because I was confident in the strength of the things that I had already offered the department, and I could move forward in that, with or without him running for sheriff. And he could move forward with or without me in that process with running for sheriff. Now, of course, I'm his maid, I'm his wife, so I'm there, I'm supportive, I am a part of that whole process. But I loved being behind the scenes helping him. He needed that support because if any of you have run for a campaign, that's not an easy task. And I want to take this time to applaud him for stepping out to try to do something better than what we've seen. You see it in headlines and everything. People are arguing and fussing and pointing fingers at law enforcement. And then law enforcement is pointing fingers back and saying, hey, I get it. You think you pay my salary. You think your tax dollars are what's sustaining me, but I have a job to do. And there's a back and forth and never really a balance in the middle to hear what we are saying. I liken myself to being both an officer and both from the community, with that added extra of being and looking like the people that are marginalized, at times treated differently. But wait, as soon as that topic gets put on the table, the first thing that is said is that someone is pulling a race card. It's not necessarily a race card that is pulled, but for me, it's like that choice. It's the choice to treat people fairly no matter what they look like. And even deeper, and some of you might think this stings a little bit, I don't care that you have racist tendencies. I don't care if you have racist thoughts. I just care when it becomes a targeted, specific act toward me. I care when it becomes a part of the decision of whether or not to hire me. I care if it becomes something that is reversed, like in this case that I was placed under, and said to be me behaving in this manner. Now, I could have chosen to get angry about it, and I did. I could have been hurt by it. I was. My health could have suffered. Yeah, it actually did. But I kept going. I didn't stop. In October of 2021, I had horrendous lies being cooked up about me. And what happened was, I thought I was going to meet with my chief about things that I had reported to her. We had been discussing them since March of that year, and now it was October. From my first meeting with her, she was interested in knowing some of the challenges and things that I was going through as a unit commander. She even said that she would be meeting with me monthly in order for us to discuss ways that she could support and help me. Along the lines of the conversation about support, brought about me telling her about the lack of support with the person between she and I, my immediate supervisor. Well, fast forward back to October, and I think I'm going to actually meet with her and my supervisor. I requested the conflict resolution after my supervisor dodged meeting with me. I wanted to tell her straight. I wanted to work it out, just the two of us, because it had been constant meddling, phone calls, ridiculous requests that sadly, because she did not know my operation, became so childlike that it was almost laughable if it had not been so disruptive. Well, I go to the office because I'm summoned there by the chief secretary, only to be met by my immediate supervisor and placed under investigation and transferred from my command. Now, any of you might say, oh, well, it happens. It happens all the time. She was sitting in a position that's basically an acting captain. She's a lieutenant. She can be moved anywhere. I've heard it all. But you don't go from 200 staff members, $15 million in corruption with coming up missing under Sheriff 33rd one, that 33rd sheriff. You don't come up with $15 million missing and unaccounted for, and you have no idea. And your name is attached to it. Because that was $15 million of a $30 million budget that I was responsible for. 65 locations all over Los Angeles County with outreach and distribution of food services. Now, some people even talk about that, but they cannot get beyond the fact that it is a large command within the department. And to run an operation so huge, one that was mismanaged very badly. No records to speak of, trying to reset and restructure something all over again. People were content in it being just that little operation. But it had the potential to be harmful to thousands. And a month before I was placed under investigation, that actually came to fruition. 3,000 inmates were served spoiled, moldy bread. And it wasn't a big deal for my command staff. 3,000 inmates. Now, you might look at inmates and have them same type of, pulling a card, because a large majority of those inmates incarcerated happen to be of the same race as I. You can't pull a card from a deck that is not handed to you. And in some cases, and I don't say all, but I'm not there. I'm not there when the crime happens, the sentencing, and aside from being a bailiff at one point, I wasn't there when the whole entire process, start to finish, happened for that inmate. So I choose to remain indifferent and to do my job. It's why I also say I'm not worried about what your thoughts are about me. I'm worried about how you treat me. And if you are good at what you're doing in the uniform, that doesn't even come into question. You're good at wearing the uniform. And if you're really good, you manage to tamp down some of the biases, whatever it is that you harbor or you feel on the inside, to make it fair for the first person you stop on a traffic stop as well as the next one. The first person you encounter on the street as well as the next one. The first suspect that you speak to as well as the next one. The first inmate that you contact as well as the next one. You are not the judge and jury from start to finish. Your job is specific to arrest and control, and in custody situation, basically housing and making sure that the inmates don't fight each other, definitely don't fight us, that they're clothed, fed, and actually transported back and forth to court from their housing units. It's general, and there's so much more to those positions and tasks, but for the sake of shoring that up a little bit, you're not the judge. Your judgments and biases that are brought into the job are not good, but people do it. I was removed from my command and basically given the task of watching security checks and reading force packets as a certified force instructor. But even that was too much, as that information was taken back from me when, wait for it, I scrutinized things just a little too closely and called out the things that were not good in those packets. That's where all the spilling the LT comes in. You see, I would handle the situations internally and would speak out about them, report, make the notifications, do the things that I was supposed to do. And it never needed to be where I would post about it or speak about it. I didn't even talk about what I did for a living. Initially, it was the safety for my children, because let's face it, people hear about law enforcement officers and it sends them into a tailspin. I hate the police. I don't like 5-0. I think that they're all out and dirty and in a gang and out to get people. Wrong. There are some of us that wear the uniform and we wear it with pride. We wear it with integrity, with honor, with courage, with wisdom, with fairness, with character, with truth. And then there are those that the uniform wears because it's their whole entire identity. And at every turn, they have to spout out and let you know who they are. And they walk into your homes and they talk to you like they pay that mortgage. Well, I'm here to tell you that's wrong, and I don't agree with it. Not in any way, form, or fashion. There's no place for it. We're there to do a job. And if you've committed a crime, you've got to understand the way that game plays. Let the punishment fit what the crime is. Not more excessive force, not extra time for certain inmates and not for others in the sentencing. And that's up to the judges once it's handed over. But it starts with us and a good work product, a good report, things that actually tell the truth. And then we can't point fingers always at the district attorney's office and the judge should do this and our laws are this and so much of my tax dollars are going for this. All we're doing is complaining. I can truly look back and say over those 26 years that I was killing it in the smallest assignments all the way to the more prestigious and the bigger ones, because I was doing it with heart. And I didn't know any of the people that I came in contact with. So why was I judging them instantly? I didn't. And I'm here to thank those officers who know who they are and know that that shoe doesn't fit. Now, on the flip side of that, for the ones who are cynical, who are bitter, who are angry about so many things and always spouting out about the same, if that shoe fits, put it on and go to the ball, Cinderella. But that is not what I'm speaking to. I'm speaking about a stellar career that was crashed in a moment, and where people would say, hey, just get over it. Go ahead and leave. You shouldn't even be worried about it. Shake it off, sunny side up. It's all a part of the process of growth. I say to you, it didn't happen to you. So it's always easier to objectively step back and tell people the right way to handle things, especially when you're not in it. And it's great to be able to do that. But also, I would implore you to know all of the details before making those harsh decisions. I walked into that room thinking that I was going to meet with two people to discuss matters that would remove the disruptions from what I was doing well, opening a cafe. Didn't know anything about food services, but I went and got the certification as a food manager in order to do so. The other thing was that I hired over 60 people into the organization that had vacancies at 49. But you hear all the time about agencies having all of these vacancies and problems and low staffing. So I had already at least exceeded that, even with the loss of some staff members. And those losses had nothing to do with anything that was claimed in these cases, that I was running people away. The people doing the work and seeking some structure for the betterment of the department were happy, and they expressed the same. Those that complained were usually the ones that were sitting in air conditioned offices and not over those hot pots and in those kitchens with all of the work constantly on their feet, moving back and forth. They were comfortable. And I shook up that comfort with accountability. I get it. When you have your no one's looking, your supervisor's not around, I can sit back and just do and breathe and, watch videos on YouTube. But you're at work. And those of us considered nerds, or, oh my gosh, I just get there, punch a clock, and go home. You do way too much. I'm glad that I did, because by documenting properly, by communicating the things that were wrong and the times they needed to be communicated, with being clear and even gaining clarification when I didn't understand, by creating checklists that allowed me to continue forward and make sure that I didn't miss anything. And I still miss things, even with these attempts to not miss. But I was able to say, wait a minute, the character that you tried to create, who you fabricated and falsified and lied about, doesn't exist. At least not here with me. I had always been kind of quietly reserved at work. You always look like you're frowning. I'm in deep thought. Your voice is deeper and it sounds like you're fussing. It's not something I hadn't heard before. But it wasn't a fuss, and I can assure you that I would take someone by the hand and walk them through whatever process was necessary, even the things that I had to deliver that were tough. Never once did I have the mindset to go after people. Not once. And I had been working in the assignment for 3 years prior to the supervisor who put all this in place. Now, you tell me you're going to a meeting to discuss problems and how to fix them, and you become the problem that is created to deflect. How would you be feeling? I was never vocal about even what I did for a living in social media because there was no need for it. There was enough screaming and yelling and people pointing fingers and the po this and 5-0 that and people on the streets and if they just complied and all of the things that are said constantly. And not many people are trying to work towards solutions. For those of you listening right now that know that there are so many major problems within the department, I spoke earlier about my husband running for sheriff. I applaud him for stepping out. But that didn't come without losses. Losses in friends, losses in people who, if it didn't benefit me, then I'm no longer interested in paying attention. But people are hurting, and many more before me have suffered in this way from political backlash, and there are more to come. And for that reason, I'm speaking out about what happened to me. It hadn't happened up until then. And I'm sorry, I was busy trying to do the right thing in whatever assignment I was in. And I like to think that I made things better along the way. It wasn't popular because when you ask people to be accountable and they're comfortable, that's the worst thing in the world that you could ask of another human being. So I figured I'd let you know a little more about this whole spilling the LT and the posts that I've been sharing with you. There's so much more to come. And today, the tea is peppermint green tea. One of my favorites because anytime there's mint in anything, I enjoy it. Here's what I offer to you. Please try to pause before you proceed on comments, thoughts, suggestions to anyone else if you don't understand what they're going through. Your words have meaning and they can work for good or bad for whoever you're speaking to. Strive to make them work for good and help people heal. This is part of my healing, and I'm sharing the same with you. Bye for now. This is Cece with Spilling the LT, and thank you for listening in. If you like what you're listening to and you want to learn more, go ahead and click that subscribe button below, and I'll see you as I continue to spill the LT. Take care.